No, I can't hear you guys yet.
This that's been identified in the
Oh.
packet.
So moved.
Thank you, Sophie. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I haven't, have we got connection with Randy yet?
Can you guys hear me? Because I can hear
I
you now.
think Randy can hear you, but
But-
they're still having technical issues with online.
As long as he can hear, we'll try to work that. I got a majority, so we'll go ahead and move forward. Oh, that's a good point. Okay, okay, so I guess Brittany, would you watch for that? At some point in time, if he just needs to signal, let's figure out a signaling if we can't get voice connection. Okay? Randy, you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay, or down? Okay, down if you don't want. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. This is the public comment period. If you have anything you'd like to share with us on any topic, please step up to the mic. We just want to hear your name, your address, and tell us what you're thinking. Anybody? Please. Name and address.
My name's Austin Terry. I live in Hooper, right across the street from Roy. So I hope I'm welcome here. I'm not sure. This is my first time. Address is 4309 West 605 South in Hooper. And I live off 300 West Street, 25 mile an hour street. And my concern is the speeding on that street. And I just wanted to bring that up.
What was your street, the 43?
4300 West and 6075 South is where I'm at.
Below Emma Russell, just north of it,
Yeah,
or
Russell,
just south.
Emma Russell Park, just south of it. Yep, exactly. So I just wanted to bring up a speeding concern that me and several others have off of that road. And a request that maybe a traffic study could be done.
I
Okay.
witness it every day as I walk Emma Russell Park. They fly down that road.
Yeah. No, you should be able to hear me now. I've actually got family that lives right directly, I think, in that neighborhood just below it in the Hooper portion. And they also have made this suggestion as well.
Okay.
Hear you.
And I guess maybe I was kind of hoping for clarification. 4300 is actually a divider between Hooper and Roy.
That's-
Ownership of that road is whom's?
We take more of the responsibility.
We take responsibility for. So we own 1 foot on the other side of the sidewalk to the west. Okay,
What's
And-
the speed limit on that road?
25.
Have conducted a traffic study in that area and I can share that with the group. I don't recall what the study stated at this time, but I know that was also identified on the transportation plan of an area of concern as well. So
Yeah. And don't we also have a I don't want to call it's not a calming circle, but a roundabout going in there? Isn't that proposed? And that should actually temper back some of the.
So the proposal of the roundabout, it's actually over by the junior high school is where we put the grant in for 4800 South.
Mike.
No,
The junior high.
No, it's on 6,000 and
That was
40.
in- Yeah.
4300, right next.
I guess it would calm that traffic down a little bit.
Yeah, it's just, I think the issue here is probably more timing. We're still trying to get the one at 3106,
Yeah.
6,000, which we
It's-
hope
yeah,
to get this year.
You're right. You'd be out if we get the grant, 2028, 2030. maybe.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
so
And
we
I'm
need to
sensing
address
from the
speed
comment
before
that maybe we'd like to do something before we wait till 27, 28.
What about parking the speed trailer down there? Other than, I've read a lot of information that just encourages people to see how fast they can go, but it's something.
Okay, I think what the request we got here, and obviously there's some is, let's certainly look at the study. But maybe after looking at the study, to sort of define when that was done and ask the hard question, council, for our next meeting. Should we go ahead and ask for a new traffic study to be done on 4300? And just to bring update to see, and we do have a device that isn't quite as obvious as that trailer. So maybe that would be a good one we can put on there. Are you okay with that, council? Okay, we'll do our part, see what we can do on that. Recognize that there are some limitations. We just need to make sure we do this smartly.
If I may add another comment, I've noticed that there are varying types of people that speed and for different reasons. There are ones that fly down at probably twice the speed limit because they are probably testing out how fast their car can go. And then there's others that drive whatever speed limit they go because they feel it should probably not be 25 and they're just going to go however fast they want to go.
Yeah,
And then there are others who accidentally go over the speed limit. And that's just my observation.
yeah, and I think to your point, there's sometimes the process by which we gather information will point that out. Suggesting is that certain hours of the days, maybe there will be times when you see much more of this racing issue and you know, it's hard to say. I don't know if there's going to be a real solution. And here's the reason why. 3500, which is the main corridor that we expected most of the people use, was supposed to be widened. When UDOT did the analysis on that, they did it in 2008 with, I thought, an anticipation to get that widened before now. They certainly are doing it from Antelope Drive north out of Layton, Syracuse area coming up towards this way. And UDOT was going after funds to finish it from West Point all the way to 1800. Interesting enough, unless we can find ways by which we can push it a little bit harder, they're going to stop there and not move it from 1800 in Clinton up to Midland Drive. It's not scheduled to actually be widened until 2029. The reason for all this conversation and background is that 3500 is a parking lot. And people are going to find alternatives. We're seeing up in 3100 coming out of Clinton into Roy. That's jammed up. Hence the reason why we put a roundabout. It's going to roundabout that's going in there. And hence the reason why we requested a roundabout on 4300 at 6000 in Roy, because we're seeing a lot more congestion than typically we would ever see. Until 3500 gets to the 5 lanes, which is planned, my fear is going to be it's going to be problematic until that's done. And even more so when the West Davis Corridor Freeway is done, and that's scheduled to be done in 2 years. And so this is getting really interesting right here on this border. We've got to find a solution. 4300, 3100, there's a few of these roads that are problematic. So we'll do what we can on that. Maybe we can use it as an argument to put a roundabout in early if we can find the funding, but we'll take a shot at it. We may just have to redo an update or traffic survey to see where we go. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, do you mind if I add something to the conversation?
Please.
I just pulled up an old email. It was from September of 2020, sorry.
Can you get
Average,
closer?
average speed on the road was actually 29 miles an hour out of 2,079 vehicles surveyed. 24 vehicles were above the speed of 10 miles. It's 36 to 39 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So I'll forward this email to you. This was a long time ago. I do travel the road a lot myself. Traffic is getting heavier on there, so
Yeah.
we can do another study down there.
And council, would you think about that? Let's look at the data that he's got. And if you believe that we can, maybe it's a good idea just to request the city to do a traffic study at that location. You can have the same argument with 3100 as well. We're seeing a lot of congestion. They're trying to avoid 3500. That's the reality. Thank you, Matt. We'll bring that up in the next meeting and see what, after we get the information, what to do. Okay, anybody else like to make a comment? Name and address. Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Metters. I live at 4980 South 3500 West. So thought, hey, this is a great time to walk up and just give a couple of comments and ask for just a little bit of information. I was able to spend some time studying the 5-year plan, the general plan, which I guess looks like it's going to be discussed or moved on tonight. Really ambitious, really interesting. The branding of neighborhoods is really kind of exciting. However, we live on 3500 West and we live on the parking lot. And so one of the concerns I had, I guess I didn't quite understand, was, it looks like 3500 West on both sides, as part of the widening project could either, some of the homes, and we're right on the edge there, right at 4950, right off the corner. So it looks like some of those homes might either be purchased, and raised and used, and that land used for, to widen the road, or, and it also looks like there's a rezoning of mixed use there as well. That's kind of what it looked like in the plan. And so looks like some of those, like a house like ours might actually be zoned mixed use. And so retail could be placed there. So I guess one question I had was where we get answers or clarification on any of that. Because it was hard to find that in the plan. And then as part of the discussion, I remember we went to a meeting back at last February regarding a development across the street, and there was some discussion about 3500 West being widened and maybe the time frame being moved up to 2027. And at that point, there were going to have to be some decisions about what properties may need to be purchased by the state in order to widen the road. We're trying to get more information about that too, and it seems like there's not much. And I guess the clock's ticking, right? We've got 4 years, but we purchased our home 18 months ago, a little over 18 months ago. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of information out there about the widening, so we didn't know about it. It wasn't disclosed. And so now we're kind of working with our realtor to figure out what we can do. So I guess, I'm hoping that mixed use doesn't happen, but it looks like that's in the plan. I'm hoping that, that the house isn't, the houses on both sides of the street aren't taken, but it looks like that could be part of the plan. And so I guess I'm not going to implore anything because the city's got to do what it's got to do. But if somebody could point me in the direction of where we would get answers, even if some of the answers are we don't know right now, would be super helpful.
Okay.
Because we've got to make some real estate decisions, and we want to stay in Roy, but there's a good chance if the house is going to be taken that we probably won't. So, which is a bummer because we love it here.
You bring up some good questions. I will tell you, at least from what I know at this point, I have seen the 2008 study that was done, environmental impact study, and it looked at two basic options, and the options were literally just a corridor right down 3500 going north, and then they basically shifted it to the west. And they looked at the option under the study that looks at the west, which is going to have much more of an impact on the houses that are on the west side of 3500. The problem we got today, in my opinion, certainly just my opinion, UDOT will have to come back in before they do anything and reevaluate that study, in large part because there has been development that has occurred now that it was not originally put into the study. And so although they may not necessarily have to do an environmental impact study again, they certainly will have to go in and reevaluate that and then try to figure out exactly what that new route is going to be when they choose to do that. We're in conversation with UDOT on a regular basis as 5600 widening is going. I've certainly indicated to the UDOT director, Region 1 director, that at some point in time, we need to have a conversation about 3500. Let us see if we can't find some information that's out there. The data on 3500 widening is public. That was posted in 2008, but it's old data.
Yeah.
And so there needs to be an update to that. And I'll ask and see if we can't find the project, but do me one favor, if you will, before you leave, just get your name and a phone number to Matt or an email address, and we'll certainly see if we can get some more information. And if we can, we'll get it to you. But like everything we do, if we get information, we'll post it also on the city's website to make it available to the public.
Excellent.
Okay?
All right. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. And I believe the conversation was about the general plan, Steve, because I think there were some provisions under there that talked a little about that widening and stuff in the general plan. And maybe that's what he was looking at. Okay. I thought it was the 5-year strategic strategy plan that we've got. Okay. So, we'll have to figure out where that information is and see what that says. Okay. Anybody else like to share a thought? Name and address. Thank you.
I'm Mike Gann, at 2174 West, 5650 South.
5650.
And I go to the gym every morning the complex.
Mhm.
And I come home. And usually I'm out of there by about 7:15, but sometimes I don't get out of there till 7:30. And over here at this crossing, I've called 3 times because there's 2 little kids there needing to cross. I know might be a little earlier than what the crossing guard gets there, but the lights aren't on. The kids are good because I've never seen one of them step off the curb until people stop. I've stopped. And when I stop, there's like 10, 15 cars go by me on both sides, at least that many. And they're not slowing down any. And I just don't want to see one of those kids hurt. And I've called in 3 times because nobody's been there. 2 of them were 7:30 or after 7:30. And they've said that one time they said that the police were aware of it and they were going to take care of it. And I told them I'd be here tonight to talk about this, but if they could even get those lights to come on,
Mhm.
I think I've noticed that once them lights come on, everybody starts slowing down. But they're not slowing down unless the lights are on. I've made a habit now to always slow down and look at that crosswalk because one time I went through the intersection and I saw them on the curb, but it was too late to stop for the crosswalk. And I was glad they were still on the curb, but I just like to bring that up because that's that time of the morning, they're flying down that road.
Yeah.
And
Let me make sure I understand exactly which one. We're talking about the Hawk signal sitting right alongside on the street by the elementary school. That's the one we're talking about.
we're talking about the one on 1900,
Oh, the one up
right
there,
by the fire department.
Oh, across the
Okay.
main road.
Yeah, the
across
main road.
1900. Okay.
I mean, they're doing, some of them might be doing less than the speed limit, but most of them are doing 40,
Oh, yeah.
45 miles
That's
an hour.
45 mile an hour zone. Okay.
So, and I just wanted to make one comment. We got the Roy thing out to make sure which day we were gonna have this meeting at the first of the month. Well, actually, when we got the Roy Connection magazine.
Mhm.
And we couldn't find it in there, and it's real hard to find. And Mr. Paul wanted to have more participation. If they could find a way to make that bigger, because regular print, like's on this paper,
Mhm.
I can read, but that fine print, I can't read it, so I get my wife to find it. And this week we didn't, this Roy Connection, we couldn't find at all, so. And I don't know whether you can put anything on there like what's gonna happen if there's something coming up that's special. But I have been trying to get some of my neighbors done so far. I haven't, but I'll work on it still. I don't hound them. I just tell them what time it is usually. And so those are my 2 things.
I think the agenda is posted on the website if people have access to the website.
Well, I find websites sometimes are hard for old people like me.
It's on the marquee too.
So
Brittany puts it on the marquee when you drive by 1900.
I
It's
just,
usually always the first and the third
yeah.
Tuesday.
But I
of
think
the
figured
they
month.
want to
I
know
figured
what
it was
we're
the first, but-
discussing.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought I might make that comment. If we could get more people out to this, I think you might get a better input on things. So that's my comments for
Perfect.
today. Thank
Okay.
you.
Well, thank you. Good input.
Thank you.
1800 West. Okay, anybody else? Please name and address.
Dennis Brown, 2119 West, 6,000 South. Um, Like he just said, on the Roy connection, I liked your article. Diane liked your article too. And I like thinking about the cannery. My dad used to work there. But anyway, my comment, I basically have a question. I'm not picking on you, but when the city approved the tax increase this last year, I had to raise my rent on all my rentals quite a bit to cover the cost of that. And I know it wasn't all Roy City, it was a big portion of it was Weber School District also. But also on that meeting, it was voted to hire an economic development individual, and I know that's been done. With the Federal Reserve raising interest rates so much, like every couple of months, they do that. It's raised probably 3 to 4 times since you guys had your vote. And maybe this is a question for Matt. How do you evaluate the success of an economic development person with higher interest rates? Because now he's trying to paddle upstream, you might say, because the price of money is costing so much more than what it was just a year ago. Do we still justify having an economic development person? Because I haven't seen anything happening downtown Roy since we changed the multi-use function close to a year ago. So is anything happening at all, or how do you evaluate the success of an economic person? Because I heard the figures given when the budget was approved that this individual is going to be making $170,000 to $180,000 approximately. I didn't look up the exact number. I just want to make sure our tax dollars are being spent wisely. That's my biggest question. So any comment from anybody on that? How do you evaluate the success of an economic development individual, especially when interest rates are going up 1/4 to 0.5% every 2 months?
If you'd like me to make comment, I can.
Go ahead.
I think it's very difficult. I think point taken, going through the process, I did mention to the council that I don't think the success of an economic development officer is defined as getting a Chick-fil-A or getting a movie theater, things like that. There's endless amount of work that he is doing, though. He spends a lot of time, and that work was either slower or not getting done before he was in that position. But I think point taken, it's very difficult to say, well, because we got this is that position. And I don't think that's fair for that individual either, because if a property owner is not willing to sell their land or anything like that, what can we do about that? So, but I can tell you, being my assistant as well, there's been multiple things going on in the city that he has been, I'm very grateful to have him in that position. I can say that.
Okay. So do we see any foreseeable growth in downtown Roy as of right now? Any prospects, or can you even answer a question like that?
Well, I think that's a good question. Certainly it's hard from a city perspective. And here's the reason why. We create an environment by which economic development takes place, but we are not at the point, and I don't think we'll ever be at the point where we're going to basically say we're going to condemn land and then make it happen.
Yeah.
I think there's a fine line between allowing the process to work as designed and then government influence.
We wouldn't want that to happen
Great.
anyway.
So we have created an environment. I will tell you, we do have a meeting with the property owner this week. They've provided site plans about what they want to do downtown. We're going to ask them when they're going to ready to make that happen. It's a sizable investment, but we've been at the position, to be honest with you, Dennis, we need that first one. And we've been working this one with this particular property owner for quite a few years.
Okay.
We're just waiting to get that first one done. And once it's done, I think it'll set in motion a lot more. But the hard part would be is that we can create the environment to allow it to happen. But we do find ourselves in the challenge, making sure that we don't step over that line, because I don't think anybody here wants to do that.
Well, I was just kind of curious to see if something was taking place and if anybody given some thought of what I just said. And if we are having some success, and Matt, I didn't know you was having him help you with some of your challenges also. I just didn't know the details of the position. So that's all the comment I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dennis?
Dennis, there's another thing that goes along with that. I might be getting the cart before the horse, but as staff changes in the very near future, as one individual retires and we make changes, it may open up the ability to turn a full-time position into a part-time position, which would maybe allow us to fund his position more out of the city as an assistant manager versus the RDA as, so there's different things we're looking at, and some of that was all played out as this was being thought out and put into motion, so.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So, and Dennis, I just wanted to say that, you know, there'll be businesses that are going to be taken away when we tear them down to widen 5600. We're hoping they'll relocate in Roy somewhere. But then 2 prime businesses in Roy are privately owned, where we would love to put some nice businesses in, but they won't sell their land. They will only lease it, and it's really hard.
Well, my challenge was from a businessman who has several rentals in Roy.
Yeah.
I had to go give those notices to my clients or my customers.
Mhm.
And I explained to them what was happening in Weber County School District, and I explained to them what was here. And I said that you backed off a little bit. You had to hire 2 policemen, 2 firemen also. I said, you backed off some, and I appreciate that. And they said, yeah, but we still have to pay the bills. And I know and you've mentioned about how high rents are,
Right.
but I have to pass those on to my customers.
Mhm.
If I get passed on by the city or the school district to me. I just can't eat $500 to $600 per house or per
Right.
building. So that's just how I have to go about
And
it.
another thing to go along with that in defense of the position, the tax increase went solely to police and fire. We hired 2 policemen, 2 firemen. There was a total ask of 8 and we only got 4. I mean, we truly need to do 4 more, but
Yeah.
you know, we're trying to figure out other ways to do that versus just throwing it on the backs of the citizens. I mean, I'm not justifying this, but we were the smallest tax increase of any city
Yeah.
that did a tax increase.
Yeah. And I know you cut back your fire department and your police departments. I remember the 8 being part of the conference. I attended several of those meetings, but I remember that. But I appreciate you bringing that up, Joe. All right. Well, thank you very much for your
Okay.
time.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks.
for your
Thank you
input.
for the input.
Okay, anybody else like to share a thought? Any topic? Okay, well, we appreciate the public comments. We got some good notes on that. We do have now some presentations. Is Troy here? Troy, okay, thank you for joining us. Verizon Tower at the Roy Aquatic Center. I think you're going to walk us through this. And by the way, council, this is information only. There's no intent to make a decision. I think we just need to ask questions, kind of understand a little bit of what this proposal is about. We'll address any future decisions based on how this is approached back to the city. So Troy, thanks for joining us, please.
Yep, no problem. So I'm presenting this project on behalf of Verizon Wireless. We've been working on it for several years. We first started looking for a site in this area in 2017. I took over in 2018 and it's just kind of been crawling since then. And so we've actually been before the city council before. It was in 2021 on November 16th. And I thought after that, we kind of had a direction forward. So we moved forward, applied for a conditional use permit application, and that was approved on February 8th, 2022, unanimously by the Planning Commission. And so since then, we've just been trying to button things up with city staff. And so now we're here trying to get city council approval. So this is on the screen right now, the search area we have been looking at for this site. And if you go to the next slide, it kind of shows the locations that would actually work for the site. Everywhere in red is residential property, and the properties that I left blank there are not residential. So they're locations we could potentially go at with the site. But back in 2017, that's when we first approached the city about the project, and city staff was interested. So we kind of stopped there. We always like to go to cities and other public entities for these projects, so the community gets more of the benefit from the site and not just a single property owner. So as to alternate candidates, I don't have a whole lot. I mean, if we don't go here at the Roy Aquatic Center, we would look more closely at going at the golf course. Those are 2 of the better locations in this area for a site. So if you continue on to the next slide, this is the area that would receive the benefit from the site in pink, and there in green is shows where Verizon has sufficient service. And so we're just trying to hit this area hard here to improve coverage and capacity. So there's better call service as well as data usage. And if you go to the next one, that is the proposed location for the site. We're just on the opposite side of the fence there. And the site would be about between 13 and 15 feet behind that fence. We'd need to cut into that hill a little bit and put up a retaining wall that would stand, I believe, 5 feet tall at its highest point. And other than the tower, which would be a 100-foot tall monopole with antennas at the top of the pole, we would have 2 equipment cabinets with space for a third, and that would be covered by an equipment cabinet canopy that stands 10 feet tall. And we would also have a backup diesel generator that only kicks on when it's needed for a power outage. Other than that, it just kicks on, I believe, about once a month to make sure it's operating correctly. If you go to the next sheet, I have an elevation of the site. To help screen the ground equipment, we plan on planting some trees, which are 11 Rocky Mountain juniper trees with a mature height of 15 feet and a 5-foot diameter. And if you go to the next slide, I have a few examples. So that's just your standard monopole and equipment. Our equipment layout's a little bit different than that, but very similar. And there's another example. I think that might be my last one there. Oh, there you go. That's a more accurate depiction of what our ground equipment will look like with the equipment cabinets, canopy, and diesel generator.
Okay, tell me the height again,
The height is 100 feet.
100 feet. Okay, thank you, Troy.
I do have a couple of questions on that. Is there anything, any of our equipment within that 100-foot radius, if that thing was to fall? Are we free of the 100
We
foot?
could check that out.
I believe at the aquatic center, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that road's about 60 feet wide. I don't know if you can pull up Google Earth or anything to check that out, but I don't have those measurements.
The other question is there anywhere else on that plot of property where it could go, or is that the only spot?
So that's kind of where we landed on working with city staff. I met with the engineer back in 2018, and he said that was the best location for the site. For us, anywhere on the property would work. It's just getting access and utilities to the site, and this works best for those purposes.
The only reason I bring that up is if we've talked about, having trouble with our complex and maybe expanding the aquatic center and putting something indoor, that's about right where the thought was of maybe you could do something because you've already got equipment and stuff right there. So I was just thinking out loud, or thinking if we ever do anything there, it'd be tough to do it with a big pole right in the middle of it,
Sure,
unless we put a rope swing off it or something.
it's a good height.
Well, let's hope not. Well, let me ask, so what would be, Matt, your opinion? What's the next step in this process? Certainly, we got details, we got a site location, we got visuals.
Yeah,
What is expected by the city council next?
really everything, it's been so long since they've been here, so we wanted to reintroduce it with a presentation. Like you said, they had everything done with planning commission, everything's okay on that end, zoning, everything's good. The only thing that needs to be done now is a lease agreement, so you're talking price, years, things like that, just
Okay.
in a lease agreement contract.
And you'll submit that to
And we
the
can
city
have that
council
at
for
this-
approval?
Yeah, if the city council wants that on the next agenda, we would have that prepared.
Okay.
Yeah, can you actually go back to the renderings of the actual tower real quick? Just want to look at something.
Be curious if they put it at the other end. of the park.
Yeah, right there. Okay, so sub item 9, you guys are doing microwave dishes, so this will not be a fiber backed tower.
No, so we put those microwave dishes on the tower for zoning purposes, just so they have zoning approval.
Okay,
But initially, we don't intend on, we won't likely put those on there. It'll be fiber fed. That's
Okay.
just in case Verizon, for some reason that's highly unlikely, needs to put microwave dishes on the tower. We have the option to.
right. Okay, so just to clarify, out the gate, this will be a fiber backed tower.
Yeah, I didn't, if you go to the previous slide, it might show where we plan on bringing in fiber. So if you see the handhold, the HH there in orange.
Okay,
So that is our fiber handhold. So yes. we
okay,
have Fiber for this project.
okay. I only ask because when you take and you have a fiber backed tower, it changes the economics of it drastically. And especially given the direction as a guy that's sitting in Tampa, Florida right now, sitting off of a 5G hotspot. You take when you have a fiber back tower, the older like legacy towers will feed into that, which would be also why you would have the microwave dishes off of it, because they'll backhaul off of that. So just again, I'm kind of more thinking out loud. Because it does change the economics of what the lease rate should actually be when you look at fair market lease rate values.
Okay, good comments, Randy. The fact of the matter is that we're not seeing any of that. I think maybe it might be a good idea if you don't mind. Randy's able to pick it up because he can see it remotely. I certainly cannot tell whether there's a fiber tower or even a containment there. So
No, that's what he's saying. The HH stands for a handoff point for fiber coming into the tower.
yeah, just the question is that looking at it from a distance, I can't even see the HH.
Oh.
So
That
I,
little red.
I see where it is. Yeah.
little Orange.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
pointed out.
There.
I get what you're saying, Mayor. I see it better because it's, I have the actuals. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I get
So my comment would be is that Matt, I think what you're going to do is you're going to put something in front of the city council to move forward.
Mhm.
Would be a good idea if it's okay if we can get a copy of this presentation so we can actually see. And then as we flesh out the last part of it, we can do that.
Sure, yeah, the city staff should have several drawings.
Okay.
They should have a copy of the survey we have, the zoning drawings,
Okay.
and they also have a copy of this presentation. 'cause
That's
they're putting
perfect.
it up.
Can we look at that picture again of where you're wanting the live picture of where you're wanting it, that right there? So that is in our pool area. Am I looking at that right, Matt? That's the restrooms.
On the
Put it on
west
the hill.
side, that's the pool house or the mechanical room. So there's not a whole lot of people there on that side of the building.
Okay, so
It's
it's on. the
down,
far side.
yeah. It's
Okay,
more
so
west.
then why,
And straight behind there is the deep pool.
Yeah, straight behind there and to the left
Yeah.
is the deep pool.
so it's
But that's
not,
the pavilion that you can see when you enter
used
the
a lot,
aquatic
like-
center and you can see it out
uh-huh.
in the field. That's the pavilion you see in that.
Okay,
picture.
so how come we're not going down to like the very end of our property to where it's not in the middle? What was the reasoning for that? Do you know that?
We're very close to the property line here.
So is this backwards? Is that what I'm looking at? Like,
So you mean,
I don't
why
get-
didn't we go farther west? You mean?
yeah,
Right to
Oh.
the edge of the
to
property.
the edge of
line.
the property instead of in the middle right there. If we do expand or do anything from the city standpoint and we expand our facility, you know, I'd hate to say, okay, we want to do that now and have to move that down. I don't know. What's your thoughts? What have you,
What's east of there on the other side of the parking lot?
to get it on the very end of the property?
Yeah, I haven't given that much thought just because we've been looking at this location for so long that I haven't really looked at other corners of the property to see if they'd be more suitable. But if the space is there, we can make it work, but we'd be backpedaling quite a bit.
So Ross, how much more property is to the west from where they proposed this tower? Do you know how many feet or whatever? Like, you don't really,
And I think, Ann, to that point, because we have not seen the detailed documents, we're only speculating based on a picture. And without the details, it's hard for us to assess any impact, if there's going to be any impact. And so again, I think it'd be very helpful for us. And it sounds like, Steve, you may have those already. Let's ask Steve to go ahead and forward us what the city has as we now go into this process of making a final decision to move forward. Matt, is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
so once we approve it, when would you start building it?
So once we get the city approval and we know we'll get a lease in place, we'll move forward with environmental screening, and that can take up to around 6 months. So it would probably be if everything went extremely smoothly, fall of 2023 or perhaps spring of 2024.
Okay, and I have a feeling, and the public that lives around there will probably have some questions they would like to bring to the council as well.
Well,
We need to
Yeah,
prepare for
like the
that.
people right across the street from it. I
Well,
mean, I'm
Matt,
looking
didn't you
at
say
Google Earth.
that they had a meeting about it already, or?
They've had planning commission meetings about it, yes.
Yeah, and that nobody came from that neighborhood?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
But-
Well, this could be really popular and it could also generate a lot of questions. So we just need to be prepared, I think. So let's go ahead and we'll get the information. And then we just need to coordinate our next move. And the sooner we get the information, council, I think we'd be in a position for you to answer more detailed questions and feel comfortable before you go with it. Okay? Or not go with it, whatever you choose. Okay, we okay with that?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah, and in the meantime, whatever information you need in addition to what we provided, we'll get it to you. So just let me know.
okay, Troy. Hey, thank you.
Yeah, you
Okay,
bet.
good discussion. Okay, Andy, I think you're going to help us with the Open Public Meetings Act training?
I can do that. Would you prefer that I go down there or is from here?
No, no,
okay?
you're fine. As
Okay.
long as we can hear you.
So what I did, I passed out a synopsis on the Open and Public Meetings Act for all of you for review. You can take some notes and ask whatever questions you want to ask. This is required, the mayor directs us to do that every year. It's required by law that we do this every year. So for some of you, it may be a little bit redundant, but let's get started with it. So it was created by the Utah State Legislature, and cities are supposed to take and do all their deliberations and take all their actions in public in open meetings. So that's the thing behind it, that really the public should be aware of everything that we're doing. So when does it apply? It applies whenever the council convenes with a quorum present. So in our case, we're a 6-member council. The mayor doesn't get to vote though. So anytime we have 3 or more council members, that's when this is going to be applicable. And as you can see, I've written the whole definition out that's in the state code. So it's for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments, acting on matters over which the council has jurisdiction or advisory power. So this applies not just for council meetings, but if we've got work sessions, executive sessions for the planning commission, committees where we have more than, if there's 3 of you sitting on that committee, then we've got a quorum present. We can't do that. Now, 2 in the mayor is probably just fine because the mayor can't vote. So that's how all that comes into play there. If there are certain situations too where it doesn't apply, and I put in there chance meetings and social gatherings, so that's in state code, but I can go into a little more detail on that too. So if we've got a Utah League of Cities and Towns conference, you can all attend that. Different conferences, that's no problem when you're there. Fundraisers, funerals, Roy High's been in tournaments before and everybody's been out there, and none of that we don't have to worry about. Site inspections, that might come into question at times, but sometimes we can all be present if we're going just to inspect something and see, but then we're not having discussions at that time about what we're going to do or where we're going to go with that. But for all of us to, or have a quorum present to do a site inspection, that's not a problem. And the advisory committees, again, if the numbers are down where they should be, that's okay, but they're not making any final decisions. So as long as that advisory committee is just going to make a recommendation, that's okay. One of the things that is kind of unique, and it's coming more into play now, is emails. And how does that come in? And it's a unique area everywhere, but so communications that we have through emails, they can really bring up questions for us. So again, we're going to look at a quorum. So typically, you've got to have that 3 council members or more being part of that email to, where this comes into play. And then are they discussing public business? So what's okay? So any kind of housekeeping ideas, administrative matters. So if we're asking, who's going to attend, who can attend, how should we schedule a meeting? Do we need a special meeting? Request to put items on agendas, that's all fine. Giving information is fine so that you can be prepared when you come to a meeting. Where it could become a problem is if we're asking for comments on it, if we're having discussions back and forth about what's going on there. any deliberations, we're not supposed to be doing, all our deliberations should be here in public and not in private or through emails. So keep that in mind. There's something too that I've seen recommended is that we never hit the request for everybody to apply. That can create a problem. So information comes out, we don't need any responses to it. You know, we can ask, do you agree? Do you disagree? If we're trying to be persuasive, what we put out there, that can be a problem too. So, I mean, no back and forth exchange of ideas, no request to support or deny a position. We can't ask, what's your opinion on this? What are your comments on that? Do we have a consensus on this? Any of that could become a problem. So we have to be, we really have to be aware of all that. And remember, all this could be a matter of public could request through grandma request for information too. So keep all that in mind, whenever we do any kind of emails that get sent out. With the requirement that we have the meetings to be public there, we always have to get our 24-hour notice. And we also do a yearly notice of all of our regularly scheduled meetings. So we'll send that out for our first Tuesday and our third Tuesdays of the month. We do that. Then we have the 24 notice with that, 24-hour notice. If we have a special meeting, it's not one of these that are announced in advance, we've got to have our 24-hour notice for those special meetings. There might be an emergency meeting where we don't have 24 hours to do it. So we give the best means practical under those situations. All of our meetings here, we have written minutes, and there has to be recording made. Now, there are exceptions, and that's the closed meeting exceptions. And I have those listed here, most all of them, not all of them now, because there's always something being added, it seems like. But if we're talking about the character or the competency or the health, of an individual, that should be done in a private meeting. Collective bargaining, we never run into that situation here. We're not dealing with any unions. But if we're talking about the purchase or sale of real estate, so if we're getting into appraised values, things like that, we can have a closed meeting about that. If we're discussing negotiations and it might hurt us if that was out in public, we can have a closed meeting on that too. Now, if somebody violates that and says something, there's really no penalty on that, but it hurts our position, right? If somebody starts talking about, hey, we're having these negotiations and this is what we think the price should be. So that's just a time where we can have closed meeting and not have it out in public. Deployment of security, investigative proceedings that we may have for criminal misconduct. If we're reviewing ethics complaints, that's another time where we can do that. We have to keep in mind, and I'm usually here when we're doing all of this, when we have a closed meeting, we have to have we have to have a quorum present. We have a roll call vote for that always. We have to have a 2/3 vote to go in it. But that in that motion that we're making, we have to make sure that we give out the reason for the motion. And this is kind of the unique part, is where we're going to have that closed meeting at. And with these meetings, usually they're always supposed to be recorded and detailed minutes kept. But if we're talking about character and competency and security issues, we don't do minutes and we don't do a recording. There's an affidavit that the mayor has to sign that says it was limited to that topic. Discussions that we have in those closed meetings are limited to the purpose of the meeting. So we can't go into other areas in there. We have to, if we do talk about ordinances, resolutions, contracts, none of those can be approved in our closed meetings. We can't interview people for applying for an elected position. We've been through that in the past at different times, but it has to be done out here in public.
Right.
We've discussed this before. We can't take final actions in those meetings. There has been a case. It was in can't remember the exact name, but it was against the city of Wellsville. And what they had done, and what the court said it was okay, is that they take that final action subsequent to that closed meeting. Now, we've been able to give direction in there, but I'll give you an example. There's from time to time, there's been a closed meeting to talk about a personnel action. And what are we going to do with this employee? So at that point in time, looks like we're going in a certain direction. We've done negotiations with that employee and said, look, we're going to have a public vote on this to take action, maybe to terminate your employment. What do you want to do? Typically, that gets resolved without having to come back in public where you're required to vote on it in public. So it's just an example of one of the things that can be done. Again, I mentioned something about talking about property issues, but let's say there's a personnel action and we talk outside of that. Technically, that's not a violation of the Open Public Meetings Act. And it doesn't subject anybody to criminal prosecutions or anything like that. It could be an ethical violation, could be a civil violation if somebody wanted to sue, but those are things that, that in itself, or talking about what was in that private meeting, doesn't subject anybody to criminal action. When we have those meetings, everything in that closed meeting should stay within those of us who are there. I'm okay if those of us who are there have conversation outside of that meeting, and talk about what we talked in there. I don't see a problem with that. Okay.
As long as it stays between people that were in that meeting, and when you're talking, you don't have a quorum present.
Yeah. So if there was, if we held an illegal closed meeting and we decided to take a certain action in that time, which we've never done, but if that happens, they have anybody who feels that they want to take a suit, they can void that action, has to be filed within 90 days. City could be liable for court costs, attorney's fees, and it's enforced by the Attorney General or the Weber County Attorney's Office in this case. They're the ones who would prosecute any violations. Violations of this are a Class B misdemeanor, so we can't be having closed meetings to discuss items that aren't supposed to be in a closed meeting. And that's all I've got for you. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. Always feel free to, whenever we're thinking maybe some of these things, we can always talk in advance. You can always call me about different issues and where they should be, and it doesn't qualify for that.
Okay, Andy, thanks. Council, any questions? Okay, good rundown. By the way, this particular topic, Open and Public Meetings Act, it's not uncommon that there's oftentimes bills going through the legislator looking to make some tweaks. It's happening again this year. House Bill 21 is going to put some more requirements if it gets passed on this particular act. So we'll watch and see how that unfolds, and we'll come back, become part of the training requirements. Okay, thank you, Andy. We have some action items, specifically a consideration of resolution 23-5, amending the Roy City Personnel Policy and Procedural Manual. I believe, Andy, you're going to talk about that?
Yes, Mayor, in our, can't remember if it was the last meeting or the meeting before, but I believe you initiated that discussion, Mayor, about TikTok. And in line with Congress has passed legislation, President Biden approved that legislation to ban TikTok from electronic devices for federal employees. Our governor followed up, did the same thing, and it was the council's directive at that time that we change our personnel policy and procedure manual to include that same prohibition. So there were two areas in our manual where that comes up. I've added and made those changes in those two different spots. So if you approve that change, we'll make those changes to have it included in the policy manual.
Okay, perfect. Council, any questions, comments before we take a motion on resolution 23-5?
I make a motion, we accept resolution 23-5, amending the Roy City Policy and Procedures Manual specifically to remove TikTok from employees' devices.
Okay, I have a motion.
Company, I should say city-owned devices.
City-owned, okay. Council, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Diane, okay, this is a roll call vote. Brittany?
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
I,
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul.
Aye.
The resolution passed. Thank you. Okay, we now have consideration resolution 23-6, approving an agreement between Roy City and the Combustion and Control Services LLC for the replacement of the boiler system at the Roy City Recreational Complex. Ross, I believe you're leading the conversation on this one. Thank you.
Yeah, we had, as we've said through this time, we had a timeline of everything we were gonna do, and we had the bid opening on 22nd with 6 companies bidding on this project, with the low company bid being with Combustion Control Services for the price of $468,391. So I'm just here to ask you to approve that 23-6.
Actually, on this, would it be possible, knowing that we have some upcoming like ramp grant money? What's our time frame as far as when we have to get back to the bidder? Isn't it like typically 30 days?
30 days, 22nd of February.
Okay, so we could in essence. If
We won't
push-
know, the ramp grant isn't until March.
Isn't it, it's the ramp grant is not until March?
I do have a clarification on that that would make me more comfortable about this. Is there any chance that if we spend the money now, because the money that we've allocated, the 500,000, is being used as matching funds on a ramp grant? Do we know for sure if we spend it now that we could affect the ramp grant by not getting this as matching funds?
So, the ramp grant was written that these funds and these projects are all a part of it. And according to, the name just left me, but Shelley at Ramp, because the ramp grant went in first, we're fine to proceed on this project.
So we wouldn't miss out on ramp.
No.
This
Okay.
is matching
Ramp was
funds.
still use this as matching funds.
Okay.
Which is how we
So,
wrote.
okay, as long as they recognize it as matching funds, what we're paying out now, and we have a high degree of assurity with that, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't go forward. I was just concerned if they wouldn't like recognize this as part of like the ramp process. But if
I have one more question of clarity. Are we concerned that they're almost $150,000 cheaper than the next bid? Sometimes the lowest bid's not always your
I
best
don't know if
option.
you've noticed in a lot of public works projects we do, we always have people that are hundreds of
Is
thousands
this
lower
company
than
somebody that Wasatch Civil's worked with before?
this.
What's their
The
reputation?
engineering firm that we hired to do the mechanical, they've worked with them on 3 different projects, schools and some other things, and
Very happy with
very
them.
happy with them. So,
are they on state contracts just out of curiosity for boilers?
no.
Okay.
Okay, council, other questions, comments?
Based on that, I'd make a motion. We approve 26.
Okay, do we have a motion then to approve for resolution 23-6, approving the agreement between Roy City and the Combustion and Control Service LLC?
I'll second.
So moved.
You give me the first.
I did.
Okay,
I started doing it and then you started
so I
talking.
just want to make sure we get this
Yeah.
down for the
Yeah.
record. And who's going to give me the second?
I'll second it. Okay.
Well, you got a Randy and a
Flip a
Diane.
quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Brittany, if you go ahead and work this.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, council.
I do have one more question. I probably
I
should have
have
asked it
one-
before.
I have a question too, if I can ask.
Mine first. What's your time frame?
They will start in 30 days if they can, and it's gonna take till July. Just so
How,
you know,
how much is the plastering?
okay, that's what I was gonna ask. I taught CEM, they're 2 months out if we tell them tomorrow, and it is $450,000 to do the plastering and redo all the coping and tile.
So we have 175,000 of donation money and 32,000 of this. So we have half of the 200,000. I think that's got to wait for ramp, but I'm concerned if we don't get it, there's not enough money to plaster the pool, which we all know is a safety problem.
And that's what I was gonna ask you guys, if I could move forward, at least putting it on the books or saying, schedule us to start the plastering of the foundation
When do you have to have that contract signed, like to start that,
on the
The boy,
plastering.
the plastering?
We
like-
do not have that signed. We'd have to, as soon as you give me the okay to, they're not gonna, so.
I say not till we hear
I
from ramp.
believe that we could actually do a forward from the city budget, because I know that there will be enough fundraising to get that amount, whatever it takes. And if we can just take a forward from our general budget, because we're not going to just stop, we're going to
Right.
keep going.
Right.
And so I believe that we should continue this on so we can get it going with the same time. And we know that it will be done. We just
Yeah.
keep working at it.
and
Do
I,
we have-
It's gonna make that guarantee. That's my problem.
well,
I'm not gonna spend money we don't have.
On the
I
flip side, do we not have to send the tiling out for bid?
It's state, they have state bid.
So they are on state contract. Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Other comments, council?
well, I have people waiting to give money, but they wanted to make sure we were gonna start on the boiler and it was a for sure thing. So,
Well, as soon
We
as
will
we get
get-
the money, we move forward
and
then.
so we'll get some more money coming in.
And so just everybody knows, we're going to have to shut the water off and everything to that building. So there
Right.
will be no restrooms, nothing in there. So it'll have to shut down for until July, till they get it back up and running.
So
So,
the whole building,
yes.
so,
So realistically, though, I mean, we hear from ramp in
March.
6 weeks. That still gives us enough time to get on the books and get the thing done. So it can grand opening in July with both the boiler and maybe if ramp comes in, we can get enough money for bathrooms. Cause that's
Well, I
another
would
problem.
hope, yeah, but I would like to be able to tell CEM to put us down.
right, I think that you should put us down because, I
Yes.
mean, I think you need to get us on the books since they're so, they're 2-3 months out. I mean, realistically, we're gonna get some ramp money. I mean, it might not be exactly what we asked for, but it'll be enough to cover to get the plastering of the pool done.
It's just-
Because if we wait to put it on the books, that may push us beyond the July
July.
timeframe. So now we're
Right.
again another several months behind. So, I mean, my opinion is that we should, if we need to take that loan until we get it, push through in great faith, because I think we have good momentum going that we should continue.
Yeah,
Right.
council, one thing that I want you to consider, Amber provided us a updated document. In fact, I think it's in here. What we're realizing is that we budgeted that complex to be able to not only get some money, but more importantly, to use some money. And they are nowhere near in terms of expenditures that we budgeted in that going into this fiscal year. And certainly there would be enough in that budget that has not been used and will have to come back and be redone, reworked, that would cover the minor differences between what we have on the books today and what we need to get that plaster work done.
Minor, it's $200,000.
Well,
That's not minor in my
you
opinion.
got a $500,000 approval from the council and you've got, how much have we got in donations?
160.
So you're roughly $40,000 delta difference between what we'd need to do that. Amber, I'm going to put you on the spot, but it seems to me with the last numbers I seen, we are nowhere going to get even close to the budget expenses that we expected out of the complex coming into this year.
And well, here's another question too. Are we allowed to shift that funding into, because again, this goes into a capital project as opposed to like an operational, correct? Can't hear you.
So we have this budgeted in the complex department already, the 500,000. So anything we don't use in operations can be used on that. Just keep in mind, we're also not bringing in the revenue that we have budgeted
Okay.
in the same budget. So
Right.
when you say it is there, I just hesitate because we also don't have the revenue and they might about equal out. to the
Plus, you're
same
gonna
thing.
close it for the remainder of this fiscal year, so
That's
there'll
right.
be
Right.
this much revenue.
Right, and we still have those employees' wages, which make up probably 65% of the budget, and we are still going to be paying out all of those wages.
Correct.
So
And-
there isn't a lot of savings due to the revenue shortfalls.
Right. My comment was more along the lines of saying is that you're gonna have to balance this at some point in time. When we finally get to the end of the year, you're gonna have to take consideration of the revenues that we didn't get as well as the expenses. But everything I read in that suggested that you didn't hire the number of people you traditionally would have hired to support that. And so the staffing number,
The part-time wages there's a lot of savings in the part-time
Yes.
wages. It's just those 4 full-time.
it's a full
employees.
time. And I'm
Right, well,
if
and then
the-
on the,
a decision, if the decision is to shut down, I'm kind of hoping that the 4 employees are not going to basically sit over an empty building that has no water. We need to consider redirecting
Yeah, we
their
have a
skills
work-
somewhere else,
We'll reallocate them somewhere else.
somewhere
Yeah.
else.
and then on the flip side too, with it rolling into July, we roll into a completely and totally new fiscal year on top of that as
Agreed.
well.
And
So-
I'd like to, if at all possible, now Ross is suggesting it will be around grand opening at 1 July. But if we delay this thing and continue delaying it because we're hashing over $40,000,
It's not 40,000, Mayor. It's 240,000.
Yeah.
okay, well,
Because he's got $400,000 in scrubbing the pool or plastering the pool and 468,000. So you're 868,000. We have 500 we allocated and we brought in 160. The difference from that to 868,000 is 400 and something thousand dollars, not
understand.
So
40,000.
it's
But what I-
160, is that the 25,000? Is that included in 25,000 from the Eccles?
That's just off my head, but so yeah,
We still have that. And we still
Yeah.
haven't heard back from,
so it's 175 minus the 2% from United Way.
Yeah.
Well,
Can we
here's- Here was my point. My point to the conversation is we keep delaying this. It further pushes this can down the road. And the key would be is to try to get these things done sequentially. If we can take the water out of the pool, fix
It's already out.
the thing, and then while the water's out of the pool, okay, fix the cement work, then we don't have to fill the water back up in the pool and then drain it again so we can do the cement work.
right?
So we need to do this sequentially, and I think we can basically make this work if we just simply recognize the fact is we may have to dip a little bit money in our capital investments and take some money out to accommodate this requirement. We still don't know what the ramp grant's going to be and won't know until March, but delaying the decision, well, it's hard for me to understand this from this perspective. The fact of the matter is, we have no problem going up there and taking a $1.5 million to build a lifting station so we can take the people's sewer on the east side of 1900, and we'll do that in a heartbeat and dump it into the South Davis sewer line. But when it comes to basically
With
spending,
ARPA funds as well. So if we have ramp funds, I'd be happy to fund
Right.
additional 200 and something thousand dollars for the pool.
Yeah.
So-
Not a big fan of spending money we don't have.
So we're basically short $65,000.
And the dilemma being, Mayor, is
Forty.
that's my poop that you guys are like, pumping that I'm already paying for. And, and that's, again, we have to provide those services. We don't have to provide the complex, but I am 100% waiting on hearing from Ramp before we start to just.
well, then I would suggest to you, then let's take it to the vote.
Right.
Then let's take it to the vote. If the majority of you basically believe that basically suggest is we don't start anything until we wait till March.
Not anything. We've already given.
We
No,
don't
no,
start
we already-
boiler.
in
yeah.
terms of getting
Boilers fine.
other pieces to this process done until March, then let's have the vote to decide which way this council is going to move. Fair enough?
And
I
can I
make a
just,
motion, we don't
can I
move
just
forward
clarify I-
with the,
before, please? Can I just clarify? So my understanding is right now, we're at about $860,000 in cost. And right, for the two things we need, right? And so we currently have $660,000 in the bank. So it's $200,000 that we're looking at possibly borrowing or shifting. And we talked about saving some funding. How much would we be saving from the employees that we haven't hired because of the part-time staff and that sort of thing? Mhm.
Because we're doing a lot of shooting from the hip. Can we table this and have it brought up in the next meeting? Because again, we've agreed on the boiler. And now we're, like I said, let's, if we can dial into and figure out what the outstanding costs are, maybe we, on the next meeting, after we find that out, we can all be a little more comfortable pushing forward with giving the green light to go ahead and get us officially on the books for the plastering of the pool. I mean,
Oh,
is
what
that-
if we go ahead and tell the plastering people, yes.
we're talking, we're
Month-
talking
And then a
14
month
days.
down the road, something comes up and we say no.
Yeah, Randy, here,
They're gonna
and
make
your
me
point's well
give
taken,
them
and
some
may end up
money
going to
down.
that, but let me just make it,
What?
make
They're
it
gonna make me
clear.
put some money down.
We
Yeah.
have
that's what I was
millions
wondering.
of dollars sitting in the bank to do this kind of work. Now, let me make that clear. We're not talking about, we're going to basically rob anybody's taxes. The money is already there. The council has chosen not to spend any more money. That's the discussion. And I'm saying is there's more money. We have just got to simply come to agreement that simply says if there's a $60,000 delta, then take $60,000 out of
It's
what's
not
already
60
there
though.
and simply
Yeah.
get the project moving. That's all I'm asking.
It's not 60, Mayor.
Again,
Your
and we're
number.
all-
200,000.
we're throwing numbers around.
$200,000.
Okay, but I'm telling you,
200.
how much money do we have sitting there in our capital investment funds that we could spend on these kind of projects?
Mayor, did you not just say like the 1.7 million for the lift station? That is where those millions of dollars should go. Understandable, like I said, and that's why I think we're all getting a little down the rabbit hole. And that's why I'm saying, what is 14 days? Let's at least, can we go out and say tentatively, hey, we're going to come back with a definitive decision after we go through, and let's have somebody actually run the numbers in terms of what we have. And we're not just like throwing numbers around is all I'm
Say,
saying.
Randy, I don't disagree with your point, but in those numbers, I'm going to make it very public of how many millions of dollars that are sitting right now that could be used to do this if the council simply elect to do that. If you want a hard number, I don't disagree with your position. But at the end of the day, there's enough money in the piggy bank in Roy City today to fix this. That's my point. And if we want to put all that in public and make it actually public, I'm willing to put that on the table. But I'm having a hard time understanding why we're scrabbling over this $100,000 or $60,000 or $200,000 when in fact we're willing to go up there and spend a whole lot more money to move people's poop. When in
It's my
fact,
poop.
is
It's
a
my poop.
resource that the city has in fact needed and needs to continue. I'm not so sure, to be very blunt with you, how I'd go up there and try to convince the 200 or some odd people who took money out of their pocket to donate to this cause and tell them, sorry, it's a mistake.
For something you campaigned against 2 different times. So
Joe,
I feel your
Joe,
passion now, Mayor.
Joe, I made a decision both times when I looked at that, I looked at the numbers. And here's what happens when you've been elected office and you start looking at this. There is not one operation in Roy City government that breaks even except the courts. Not one. Chief, you don't make any profit for Roy City. Both of the chiefs don't. You are absolutely using the money that's meant and spending the money to provide the protection. There is not one organization. Look at the numbers.
I've said I don't have a problem approving it, but I want to wait till we have hard numbers.
So Ross, how much do you have to give them?
Call for
The
a vote.
whole
They'll ask for 40% down.
40% down
Yes,
of 300,000. So
450,000.
450 for the
So-
plastering.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
council, let's move on this one. Okay, we got a choice here. And just give me a head nod.
That's what
Do you want to wait until the next meeting and we'll take this up, or do you want to basically do a vote so the city can move forward to try to figure out how we're going to plaster this particular swimming pool?
Well, I'm voting yes.
I'm open to any suggestion. You have to make the final decision. What do you want to do?
I make a motion, we table it until next council meeting.
Diane, what do you want to do?
I'd like to move forward and get the bid in.
Okay, Randy, what do you want to do?
I motion to table as well until next council meeting.
Sophie, what do you want to do?
Table.
Okay, Ann?
Move forward.
Okay, it's 3-2. We're going to sit on it until next time. Sorry, Ross. Okay. We'll try to get this thing
Yeah.
moving.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for your input. At least you can get the contract let, okay, to start the replacement
Boiler.
of the boiler. Okay. Consider, we got one more, which is ordinance number 23-1, adopting the general plan. Steve, I think you're going to talk this one.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I want to continue on now.
We got them heated up. Let's move.
In your packet, I gave you, and sorry for the size of it, 11 by 17 pages. But within that, it showed what the original language was from the December 2021 document. And the middle one showed what the proposed changes were, if it was to be removed or added. And then the third column was what the wording would look like at the end. I know some of that, Diane and I were supposed to get together, which we did. There was a few typos and other little things that need to be corrected in that aspect. We also removed some stuff of, if in the modern income housing and stuff, there were programs that were mentioned in there that no longer exist or no longer have funding. So we kind of removed them just so anybody in the future, when they're reading it, aren't trying to find this, that, or the other. So by and large, everything that is listed here and was talked about during the last work session is in your packet. So.
Okay, open for questions. Is that, you ready for that, Steve?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'd like to just go ahead
comments.
and jump in with the comments then. The general plan and I have become good buddies after spending several hours a day together the last few weeks while doing the glossary. This time has reconfirmed the conviction that the 10 distinct neighborhood concept in the general plan should be omitted. In contemplating this, I also reviewed previous notes and re-listened to our work session. In regards to the neighborhood concept, to quote the introduction to strategy 6 in the general plan on page 27, it says, "It is difficult to discern one Roy neighborhood from another. 10 distinct neighborhoods have been identified, although none are easily perceived as being different than the next," unquote. "Action will be required to separate them, then, quote, link them together with roads and trails," unquote. I ask, why work so hard to separate them and then turn around and work even harder to link and reconnect them? Our efforts and ideas should be put towards linking and unifying our city as a whole, not dividing it up first. We are known for our community feel. Let's build on that strength. A few key problems with divided neighborhood concept have been articulated by staff from Ogden and Provo, as well as voiced by Roy residents. A few of these concerns include: the concept divides the city and doesn't unify it. Boundaries aren't natural, they're too artificial. In fact, other cities have noted that this is a barrier to the success of such a concept. The names are not organic. We must hire additional staff to keep it alive. And in Provo, a city of 44 square miles, they say they plan to decrease to 5 to 6 divisions max to try to regain success of their program. And one of their divisions is about the size of the entire city of Roy at 8 square miles. There were some possible pros identified. Identification. Use the concept to identify areas in the city. One example was asking Councilmember Scadden where he lives, Herefordshire. This is a natural neighborhood. The question begs to be asked, who is going to now stop referring to Herefordshire as Herefordshire and suddenly start calling it Sandridge or Arsenal Villa or Cozydale or whatever name has been assigned? Who is going to use these divisions for identification purposes? Not the citizens, staff. We as citizens and staff already have terminology that is more organic and natural. The second possible pro is information. Sharing information had been a key benefit from Provo perspective, but there are now newer technologies that are more efficient and certainly more cost-effective. The general plan has been identified as one of the most important documents of our city, our guiding star. There should be a significant reason for a concept to be in the plan, not as fluff or filler. The benefits of this concept in our community are slim, if any, and come at great cost. 18% to 33% of our plan is taken up with this concept, depending if you include Appendix A. And this does not justify the possible benefit. During our work session last April, it was stated that the only real purpose for this concept would be for identification, and we see that that is not realistic. I do not want future citizens and councils to misunderstand why so many pages dedicated to this concept were allowed in the general plan and somehow think we were wanting them to dedicate the exorbitant amount of time and money required for this concept that has little chance of success in our city. If things change significantly, then let future councils implement their own such program. During the work session, it was said that it would be too much work to omit this concept from the general plan. In my opinion, first, too much work should not be a valid reason or excuse to make a change. And second, if the council should choose to omit this concept from the general plan, I am happy to do that work. After this further review, I believe the general plan should be adopted with the condition that the neighborhood concept be omitted. This creates a healthier and more realistic general plan for Roy City. So those are my
Okay.
comments.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay,
I guess I'll say something. I've talked to Diane about this, and albeit that I agree that I don't know how much value it adds. I do think that the fact we've spent $100,000, it's went through 2 different mayors, 3 different councils. I can't tell you how many city planning meetings, how many work sessions. I get it, it was brought up, but we had an 11th hour work session a week or 2 ago, and now we're at 11:59 to vote this in and get it in so we're compliant with the modern income housing, and we want to gut the whole document. My recommendation is it's not a perfect document. The people that made it weren't perfect. Don't take that personal because I'm part of that document. Nobody's perfect. It's a living document. We already know, thanks to the legislature, nothing personal, chief, but there's going to have to be that document opened back up in the near future and put more stuff in it. I say get it voted in while we can, because we don't have time to fix everything that people don't think's perfect in there when there's been plenty of opportunity to fix it prior to tonight.
So if we voted in tonight and then we can make an amendment to change it after that, if that wanted to be taken out.
to the
Well-
planning commission. Go ahead.
Right. I mean, if it's adopted, it now becomes a city document and any changes to it goes back to the planning commission. We got to remember in the state statutes, the planning or the general plan is a planning commission document.
Right.
The only reason why it comes to you guys is for adoption to make it a legal document.
Right.
So it really goes back to them. And I think if we remove out those sections, it really should go back to the planning commission to rework.
Yeah, I mean, to build on that too, just the naming conventions of the different neighborhoods doesn't, outside of, for lack of a better term, prettying it up, it doesn't materially change what the broad vision of the actual general plan is. And so I'm inclined to keep them in, and then if at a later date we do want to go through and remove those because they become too onerous, or there's general outcry, because again, as Diane stated, my neighborhood, I'm always going to refer to it as the Herefordshire. The other neighborhood that I grew up in, I'm always going to refer to as like the Roy Elementary neighborhood. We all have our own ways with which we like identify, and I don't think, again, in this 11th hour change, I don't think it's warranted, because again, it doesn't materially change outside of the actual document itself.
Well, and the other thing is there's nothing in that document that says thou shalt other than the modern income housing plan. It's a concept. And like I said, if we weren't up against the train coming at us full throttle, that we've got to get this approved, then we could take more time. But after 6 years and all the different people that's looked at it, I just don't understand why now. I know it was brought up before, but if it was that much of a thing, why wasn't it pushed to fix it before 11:59?
And I think the answer at that time would be is that it was just the majority of the council elected not. And as we work through that process, this is all about majority. There are some things obviously that were proposed. A lot of us proposed some things that never made it into the document. Some things were asked to be removed, never got removed. It was fundamentally based on a concept that simply says, what does the majority want as that particular or any particular issue is put on the table? All I can say is this, we're going to try to make a decision tonight, but this whole document is fluid. If you look at Senate Bill 174, which is on the books now, it's being considered, there's a chance we're going to see another adjustment to the general plan. Certainly the one we're aware of, I think it came out of 462. or maybe another one that talks about the water element that's got to come in, and it's got to be in that document before December 31st, 2025. And so these are going to force, maybe the one that's being considered this year, definitely the ones that were approved last year are going to force a change in their general plan, every general plan. And we just have to make those adjustments as they come. I think what the question on the table today would be is it, do we want to basically make a commitment to remove the components that Diane brought to the table out before, as a condition of approval? And that's, in my mind's eye, is really the issue. And to me, it comes down to whether you're going to vote for this document or you're going to vote against it. And if three of you simply vote against it, then that piece will be, that general plan will be put on hold. We go back into a work session and we flesh out the differences. But the moderate income housing report has to be extracted, because on the 15th of February, that's got to be at the Department of Workforce Services. That's the law. And so we have some options, but we have no options on that moderate income housing report. That has to be done. It has to be done today. So my comment would be is, if you have any more questions or comments for Steve, let him answer. Otherwise, I'm going to go for a motion. And if the motion basically approves, we go forward. If the motion is no, then we'll basically regroup and we'll split the moderate income housing report out of that document and get it where it has to be on the 15th of February.
Andy, I have a question. If this were proposed as adopting it, omitting that section, is that something that could be done now? Or is this something that does, because if we don't do it now, it has to go back through the planning commission, right? But if we do and accept that now, then it doesn't have to go through the planning commission and it could move forward. Is that correct? Or I'm just wondering.
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
My assumption is it's gone through there before. We can typically with most things we get from the planning commission, we don't have to do it as and that. But Steve, you might know more about.
Well, the concern comes is removing 33% of the document. Should it not go back to the planning commission then?
Yeah, that, and I wouldn't vote on it unless if I seen the final product, because you fundamentally could change that whole document in the process of removing it.
Thank you.
Okay, good questions. Council, any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, then here it comes. We've been waiting 6 years, okay, for this time. Do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 23-1, adopting the general plan?
So moved.
And that was Ann?
Mhm.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Okay, Diane, I think Sophie beat you, Randy. This is a roll call vote. Brittany, please.
Councilmember Wilson,
Nay.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul,
Hi.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Let's move on from that to the city managers and council report.
Mayor, can I say one thing?
Please.
Thank you. 6 years is a long time to go through one document. Just so you know, in 2 months, I have a stationary plan to amend this general plan to go in. So
Your hair was a different color when you
It
started
was.
this. So was mine.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. That'll be appendix when the stationary plan comes in for the modern income housing portion. Yes, that's another change. Thank you. Okay, Matt, let's go through the city manager's
Okay,
report.
perfect. Mayor and council, I do have a couple of things to go over with you tonight. First, Weber County met last night and they did increase the tipping fees for the transfer station. This is basically a flow through to Republic. They're under contract. They haul from the tipping station out to a landfill. That increase is 13.2% and goes into effect in April, on April 1st. So that does encompass some of our this year's budget. But please remember that the majority of our solid waste fund goes toward our hauling to waste management and not the tipping fees. But so we do feel like we can shore up that account at the end of the year using fund balance and then readdress those fees into our budget.
Is that going to affect the individual end user now or next budget cycle?
Next budget cycle.
So after
So
July.
it'll be a flow through.
Okay. In July.
The fee goes from 44.14 a ton up to $50 a ton. Last city council meeting, we did talk about the procurement of a fire truck. I just wanted to readdress that we did reach out to the vendor. We have that fire truck on hold. We were going to do a budget transfer this time. We're waiting on next time. We did have a lawnmower that burned up that we're waiting for a check to come in, and we also wanted to put that in the budget. So that's, but we
I
basically
talked to the
secured
salesman on that fire truck, the next meeting. You always got to be careful what you say in council meetings. You never know who's listening. But there were 3 other cities that fire truck was going out to demo with the potential to buy. So I think we did the right thing to secure it now.
So they're currently like upfitting it right now for Roy City. So we'll have that. It will take another couple of weeks, and that's why we're okay with holding off on funding.
We can have another push in. Good on you, chief.
We have had a couple of discussions about Riverdale City and the water over there by I-15. I wanted to address the meeting that we did have with Riverdale City and some key points that came out of that meeting. One of the things that we talked about in that meeting is that we were focusing, I felt like we were focusing on the water that they need, but it's actually the proximity to water that they need. Because they have plenty of water. It's not that they need our water, it's just our pipes are closer. One of the other things that came out in that meeting over by Ray City, for 50 years, Riverdale City did supply Roy City with that water in that area, not because we needed the water, but because their lines were in proximity to what we
They
needed.
supplied
the
Ray
water.
City, you mean? Okay.
And there was houses actually behind
Oh,
there
was there really?
that Ray City eventually bought out and stuff. So for a very, very long time, they were supplying water over there. And then also, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what that contract is, if we do enter into it. I talked to our utility staff today. It's not a ton of money either. So like if there's 12 houses, 10 houses a piece per month, $120. So this isn't like a monumental major contract. This is kind of a smaller contract in regards to the amount of money. Wanted to kind of point that out as well. So the recommendation from the meeting is to move forward. So I'm working with Steve, the city manager over at Riverdale, just to come up with that interlocal agreement, and then we'll bring it to city council. Hopefully we'll have that by the 21st next meeting. Did want to follow up, a couple of us at the city, including the mayor, had a meeting with all the people at UDOT, Region 1 director, and all the engineers and stuff about 5600. As you can see, they're on their 3rd house of demolition. We're working right now with UDOT to get our public safety officers in to train in those houses that they're going to be demolishing, but
I have a question
they're
on that.
moving forward quickly.
Usually, I mean, it's fire, but what about police clearing a house and stuff like that? Can you tag team it? Awesome. I've done a couple exercises with other agencies on those and they're pretty cool. It's good practice.
There is 2 phases to it. The main phase is up by I should say the first phase is the SPUI system. That's the interchange up on I-15. And then the second one is the corridor down 5600 South. They have the funding enough for the interchange, but they are lacking a little bit of funding. They felt confident that they would get the funding this legislative session. So that was
A little bit.
well, a little bit. for
138
UDOT, but
million?
Yeah, $138 million.
But
it will-
pocket
it'll
change to the
come.
state.
We're looking at a couple more years on this project as well, though. Mayor, did you have anything you would like to add to that?
Well,
meeting?
just to that point, UDOT owns 26 properties as of today. I think the city has received 10. Ross, you probably know this a little better, or Amber. A total of 10 properties where we're doing water disconnects. And so what we're going to see is the 2 are down. One will be taken down probably in the next day or 2. But I think there's 7 more that will be, since we're approving the shutting off the water and utility, they'll be taking those down probably over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to see a massive leveling, if you will, of homes on 5600 over the next couple of weeks.
Quick question on that. You say they have 26 owned. How many are they purchasing total? Like, So they're halfway.
Oh, yeah, wasn't it like, I want to say 6?
Original number was 56.
50
But they've actually worked out a deal. We think on the condominiums just up the east side of
Park.
the,
Yeah, Chateau Park.
Central Park.
Mhm.
where they're probably going to be able to try to keep some of them. And if not all of those,
That
but
was the question. Are they taking any of them? Because the one that caught on fire that's closest to the road, I can't see that there's enough space to keep that and
Yeah.
get 2 more lanes in there.
yeah, and I think they're working that piece right now pretty heavily.
I know the carports are going, but
Carports will be
that far
gone.
east building,
I know. We're waiting to see it. We got the 95% solution, but the last 5% is where they're tweaking. We've been asking for the 100% solution of what the layout's going to look like. They're not ready, but we do have another meeting scheduled. They called that meeting. That'll be in April. We hope in April we will see the actual, no kidding, this is the final design. But as you heard, not as many businesses are going to be taken. As a result of this, they're kind of squeezing everything into what they can. So
so are those businesses basically on 1900, the ones that
Correct.
they were going to take on the west side north of 56 to put that other turn lane in? They're not taking any of them?
they're not pointing to those under the latest design. I think when we get the final 5% look, we'll know that answer. But right now, the main businesses are the ones that are on the south side of 56, coming from the intersection of 5600, 1900.
So is Golden West going to be able to stay there and just put their parking on the
That's
south
correct.
side?
Yeah, right now the plan is they're going to try to keep the Golden West in place and then relocate the parking. Mhm.
So basically Wells Fargo, Wendy's,
The
the
dry
dry
cleaners, 7-Eleven.
Maybe 7-Eleven. We're still looking for that final design. Yeah.
Okay.
So as soon as we get that, we'll definitely get it to you and get it to the public, but just recognize that is, that's still in work. And until we get the 100% solution, we're just really kind of not there yet. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you are totally fine, Mayor. And then the last but not least, I did want to address a previous conversation in the city council, from the city council with the pickleball courts and the ramp grant that we have over there. Reaching out to the contractor, to our engineer, what we're suggesting is that we would adopt a contract of some type with the low bid, and then we could make some change orders thereafter, because we can always change the scope. We've had different conversations here in the city council chambers of doing 4 instead of 8. But we can always do the 8 and maybe not put in the lights, and in that contract was xeriscaping on the side or some of the sidewalks, and then kind of do that as we get the money. But I feel like we need to get going on it because we do have a ramp grant, or it would be wise not to, or to tell them that we're not moving forward. But I
Right.
feel like we do need to execute that.
And I think you have to execute that this year in
Yeah.
order for us to make sure we take advantage of
Calendar
that
budget.
ramp.
We can usually apply for extensions, and they're really willing when we're actually moving on something. I would guess that if we adopt a budget now, that the contractor's not going to go out there until spring anyway, but I
Right.
feel like we probably ought to
Yeah.
get moving forward so we can get going on the change orders and pricing and different things like that.
So if it was 300 yards of cement, and so if we did 4 pickleball courts, so then basically probably be 150 yards cement in
Okay.
half. So we got 50 yards donated from Geneva Rock, and then we just found out that Parsons now will donate 50 yards. And Altiview is just still working on numbers. Might not be able to donate, but will give us one heck of a deal on per yard price. So that would, do 4 pickleball courts, and then checking with fencing companies, only got a hold of one of them so far. And then, so we could maybe potentially do that. So
But I think what you're planning to do, correct me if I'm wrong, is go ahead and get the contract released.
Yeah, if the council's okay with it moving forward, I'll bring that contract back to city council that was tabled quite some time ago, and then have that approved. if
And
they're
then we
okay
can
with
move
that.
out, and then we just need to work the GFM, government furnished materials. And if that is donations, then certainly that has to be negotiated. But Matt seems pretty comfortable that we can coordinate that, whoever wins the bid.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of difficulties now because we don't have a current contract, so we keep on reaching out to the contractor, and he's not obligated to anything.
Right.
Nor does he have to, so.
Okay. We'll bring it back to us. Let's see how the council decides and we'll see if we can move forward on that. Okay.
I do have a question about pickleball. I know Travis isn't here, but the court down Emma Russell, the lights that are on it, are they on a timer? Because I haven't personally, but my son's been walking with me. I've had him walk over and shut the lights off because at 10 o'clock at night, the lights are still on and there's snow on the court.
I thought Travis mentioned a while back that you can put them on a timer when you go there,
Maybe the
They're on
timer's
the
not
timer.
working.
maybe.
Maybe. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing that I noticed is, I don't know if somebody vandalized them or if the weather's rotted the top of the nets and it's broke through the cable that holds the net up. Would it behoove us to take those nets off in the wintertime? Of course, I know I have seen some days down there where it's sunny and there's cement, and of course, cement people are doing it, but the weather's also beating them up. So I'll leave it to somebody smarter than me to make a decision what we ought to do, but
We can look into that. It is the balance. We do take them down, somebody will be mad at us. At least one, so.
I get it. I just don't like to see equipment destroyed during the inclement weather, but I understand. Cause I have seen people down there as much as 3 weeks ago playing in the evening. So
Yeah, so anything in the 40 degrees is like springtime for
Oh,
Utah
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Matt, do you have anything else?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Council, do you have anything,
I just have a comment
please?
in regards to the mention of the Boys and Girls Club fundraiser. I know in the past we have purchased a table and I believe that's $1,500 and then we've donated. But where things are very tight, we had to do a tax increase. I just wanted to go over what we already donate to the Boys and Girls Club. So just for utilities, the city pays about $11,000 for the Boys and Girls Club. We donate $1,000 for the Aquatic Center. We don't have good numbers for like supplies and capital improvements, but we are responsible for those. So we're at least $12,000, but probably closer to 14 or 15. And so I believe that it's a good project, but maybe if we wanted to go to the fundraising event, it should be done on an individual basis, not an additional expense from the city, because we already do donate a significant amount of money to the city. And we could certainly reconsider it when we have more funding and things aren't as tight in the future. But that would be my proposal for us to consider, instead of us going there for a meal and that sort of thing, allow these other donations to speak for Roy City.
So I feel that we go there for support. And I know I bid on a lot of stuff and have gotten stuff. I think we support in other ways. I know Randy paid a bunch of money to get a song played, but he never got played. But I don't know. I feel that we go for support basically for Alan and Jeannie Hall too. I know she thanked me for having a support of us coming as a city. So that's just my opinion. So
I have to agree. We do a lot of support there. I know Scadden family donated a lot. The Paul family donated. Mayor and his wife donated. So I don't know.
As part of that donation, I mean, the ticket, that's part of the donation, that
Right, so it's
$200
just
per
the
ticket.
being
So
there
do we
and-
add the extra $1,500 from the city? If we're going to donate anyway, allow that to be part of our donation. I mean, and so that was my idea. That's my thought. And so if I go, I would be, paying for my own tickets anyway, which I have in the past. But I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that we may need to just tighten the belt just a little bit this year.
I mean, I'm gonna bring up if we're splitting how much money do we put into the senior center that takes up almost as much room as the Boys and Girls Club? Equivalent, if not more. Cause they have the kitchen and all that other stuff. So, I mean, if you put the 1,500 on top of what we're already spending, it's in line with what we're putting into the senior center. And I look at it as you're honoring or trying to provide for the youth that are our future community, and you're taking care of those that have been a part of the community for so long. I see it pretty equal, and you know, there's a lot of families that have donated to that, so I don't have a problem with it.
So if
Yeah.
I understand the question, then the conversation here is whether or not the city purchases a table, and those who want to attend need to fund them themselves rather than drawing upon the city. Is that what I think I'm hearing? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, Randy, you had a comment? Sorry.
No, and I was going to say, given the current state we are in with trying to seek donations also for the complex, you're going to a broadly philanthropic event that has a lot of people that donate to those types of causes. And I think at least this year we should be there. And maybe we address it later on next year if we don't feel that it's worthwhile.
I certainly don't agree. I mean, I don't disagree. I do think we should be there. I just think that the funding should come differently. I think it should come, you know, for those of us that go there. So yeah, I agree. It is a great project and a great funding, but okay, there you have
Okay.
it. That's my thought.
Your thoughts, Sophie?
No, the continued support for that. And I think we should be there. There's no doubt.
Okay, Ann?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't pay the money to go if I didn't sit at the table. I'm not
Okay.
a wealthy woman. So I go to support in other ways and
Okay.
But-
Okay, good comments. I think you got a green light to go ahead and move forward, at least from the majority. Okay, thank you. Anything else? I got a couple of things to share, but if you have anything
I
else.
just wanted to say one thing. So on the beautification committee, you said we had like $5,000 for that. So can we use that like to replace like some of the trees out here at the city offices? Because like Glenda Moore's father's tree, I would like to replace that one that has died and a couple other ones that are visually seen a lot by the citizens when they come to our city offices for sure.
The money's already been allocated, so yes, we can use that. We also have council contingency as well, so
Okay,
either or.
Okay,
If you'd like to make a direction, we can.
Repopulate some of the
Do that.
trees we've lost.
yeah.
yeah, speaking of the trees, I will indicate too, the plan is still to take those dead trees down at Sandridge. Although it's not ours to do, it's Weaver School District. I think the plan is to do that once the weather gets in a better position.
They've been working
But there's
on it.
dead trees at every park
You
also.
know,
so-
top, I think power and lights come through and do the
They've been
topping.
taking some big ones down now.
They're taking them now. Okay, that's good. It just needs to be done and hopefully we'll move.
That
forward.
was a question I have. Do we have an arborist, or, I mean, can we seek counsel of an arborist about trimming and pruning trees at the park to optimize their life? Because I know some of the ones at Emma Russell, I think could be revitalized. If we did some trimming and push them up a little bit to where we can keep them alive.
Yeah, we do have two people that have gone to training for that, but like last year, we did hire a company to come in and take a look at each tree, and I think we can expand that to other parks if we want to.
Okay,
They came up and took a look at the city building is where they were at.
okay. Anything else? Last comment. You may have seen it, Ross. I shared it with you. There is the weed and spray training on March 7th. If we can at least get somebody from Public Works, share that with them, and also from the Parks and Rec to be in the training. I think that'd be value. It might be that one of the three of us, you, me, or Brody, will be also be asked to attend that. I'll get more details on that. Other than that, I think we've covered pretty much the waterfront. Anything else before I ask for a motion?
I think just to bring up something for Chief Golden, isn't the fire department doing a training in the next about blood?
Tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
Stop the Bleed is tomorrow, and we've got recurring AED and CPR training that's planned, so it'll be posted on our website.
And we're trying to share that in Facebook, but anybody that wants to get some of that additional medical training or, you know, first aid training, I'd recommend you to get out and take advantage of it. I appreciate your guys doing that.
We did overage, we were able to do 25 people. We actually had 30 something, and we went up to 28 for that class tomorrow. So we're full for tomorrow's class, but we'll continue to put that out as well.
And then for the other chief, Gwen, Citizens Academy. Yes, no,
So that's usually put on by the county. I don't have any dates of when they're gonna be having it this year, but we typically have people that instruct, so as soon as I get more information.
Didn't they do one here at one time?
So they actually move throughout the county.
Do they? Okay.
And I can say it's an excellent program. Highly recommend it for
It is
those
an
that
excellent
can.
program. I haven't been through
participate.
ours, but I've been through Davis counties and they are good programs because they touch on a lot of different aspects. If all else, it brings an awareness of what we do and, you know, we're not bad people. We're actually trying to help people.
We used to have our own Toy City Academy, but as the environment has changed fiscally, we weren't able to do it, which is why they actually do it at the county level now. I'm not opposed to maybe bringing that back.
Something we ought to consider in the future. We may get more citizen involvement if we have our own. I mean, maybe kind of pencil in what it would cost us and see if we have money in the budget for it. I think it's a good awareness for the public.
Okay, any other comments, council? Matt? Okay, having said that, do I have a motion then to adjourn?
So moved.
Joe, I knew you were going to say that. Any second?
I'll second.
Randy and Beecha, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
I almost didn't, but it's in my DNA to end meetings.